Anish has done with Kuruthi is that on the surface it is an action entertainer. It is a very, very commercial, fast-paced package film, but it does not come without its layers, and that's what excited me about it. The audience deserves a lot more respect than they are usually given. They are, they are a lot smarter than you usually end up giving them credit for. But I'm very glad that mentality is sort of changing with the lockdown, with the OTT platforms kicking in and being everyone's prime medium of looking for art and entertainment. I've worked on and watched a couple of that. Still, for me, it did not do justice. I don't know where to place it. I don't know if it's a play or a film or it is some abstract territory in between. But it does not give me the joy that I get from either medium.
Hi Roshan, welcome on Bollywood Hungama.
Hi, nice to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you as well. So, Kuruthi, tell me, why did you sign the film?
It was too exciting a film to not sign. Everything about it was exciting for me. I loved the script. I got a narration of it first before I read the script. So I loved the story, and I thought it was an incredible bunch of actors that were planning to be cast in it. So I wanted to work with all of them as well.
So, what is so fascinating about Malayalam cinema is, especially when we hear a lot of statements, say in Bollywood, for example, that please simplify, the ordinary people, they won't be able to understand too many nuances if you want to have. But Malayalam cinema, I think it loves to thrive in nuances. It loves to thrive in its silences and communicates a lot of stuff through ambience and through the set design. So what gives the confidence to Malayalam filmmakers and actors to do the stuff that they believe in and have so many nuances?
I think, about making it simple or making it complex, I've always felt that it's most effective when whatever is put across is put across very simply. It shouldn't be too contrived, but you can have as many layers as you want. You can be as nuanced as you want, as long as your way of portraying it is simple enough and straightforward enough. So that way I feel like avoiding unnecessary complexity, to me at least, has felt like the key. So you make your film a lot more universal when you do that. But I guess the confidence to try things out and attempt these comes from the fact that the audience here has always been very receptive. They've been very, very welcoming of experiments. They give a movie a shot, even if it doesn't have, say, like a lot of big actors in it or stars that pull the crowd in or whatever. They're willing to sort of experiment as much as the filmmakers are willing to experiment. So that helps a great deal. This is what I personally felt.
All right. So what I meant by the entire simple element. So I think the best of poetry, best of art is something that has simplicity in its core in a way. Even complexity can be simple. The idea is how you're telling it. What I meant to say is that how certain notions are hammered on filmmakers by powers to be, that public ko ye samajh mein nahi aayega. People won't be able to understand it. People want something simpler. So as you said that the audience in, say, of Malayalam cinema, they are receptive to it. An audience of, I think, any cinema, it is receptive to it, because but when you dumb it down, that is where the problem lies. And somehow the courage of Malayalam filmmakers is that they take their chances.
Yeah.
That is primarily what I meant.
Yeah, with the kind of films that have been successful in Malayalam, if you look at even the last 10 years, you'll see that the audience deserves a lot more respect than they are usually given. They are a lot smarter than you usually end up giving them credit for.
Kuruthi, what do you think is the core idea of the film? Is it the suspense element? Is it something else? What exactly is it?
I think, for me, the core idea of the film or the central theme of it comes down to a questioning of a moral right and wrong. What is right and what is wrong for you, and how do you decide? On what basis do you do you decide? This is the basic question that I think almost every character in the film is asked at some point or the other, and the actions that each character takes in such a situation or when faced with such a question is sort of what takes Kuruthi forward as well, takes events in Kuruthi forward.
What I found very wonderful was the fact that the writer's credit was given so upfront, and that too in a bold manner. Many a times we see films where the writer is like a small hyphenated sort of element. The fact is that if there is no writing, there is no film or anything whatsoever.
Exactly.
So, what do you think is the importance of writing? And if you can tell us something about the writing of Kuruthi. I mean, Manu Warrior, I think, is a very fine director. So, something about Manu as well.
Yeah, so basically about the importance of writing, I don't even think it's necessary to talk about it because you said it yourself. The whole thing does not exist without that. That is where every project sort of begins, right? It's not just people coming together, or it's not things falling in place. That is where the project is born. And yeah, I think I'm glad that this trend is changing. I think in Malayalam, a very positive shift started happening from around the time Maheshna Pratikaram happened, or Sham Pushkaran started becoming a name as valuable to films and audiences as, say, a Dilish Potan or a Fahad Fasil. So and like even in Hindi, I recently remember I think it was the trailer or teaser of Haseen Dilruba where the writer's credit, Kanika's credit was very prominently.
But it's not a regular feature.
It's definitely not a regular feature, but I'm glad that that's changing. And speaking about Anish specifically, I think Anish is a great writer. He's written another film before Kuruthi called Adishayangalude Venal. So that translates to The Summer of Wonders, I think, if I'm translating it right. So again, like brilliant concept. And what I really enjoy about what Anish has done with Kuruthi is that on the surface, it is an action entertainer. It is a very commercial, fast-paced package film, but it does not come without its layers, and that's what excited me about it. That it's so much more than what you see superficially. That if there is a fight happening on the outside, there is that much of a fight happening on the inside as well for each and every character. So nothing happens without a reason. Nobody exists without a reason. And the way he started the journey of Kuruthi out, where he's brought all of these characters together and then kept them together till the end of the film, and how he's changed relationships between people, all of that he's done so organically, so beautifully. I think Anish is a fabulous, exciting writer. Manu is also, Manu again, like I think his biggest strength comes in from the fact that he is also a writer himself. He has a very good understanding of the script, and specifically talking about Kuruthi, Manu and Anish have such a great working relationship, such a great chemistry between them, that I've always seen them as a unit, the two of them together, and they came in with so much clarity and so much understanding of the script, and it was very evident that they had spent a lot of time discussing it, working on it, developing it together. So that sort of clarity really comes in handy when you're, out on the floor shooting and going at the kind of pace that we were going with Kuruthi. There was a lot of momentum that just came in once we started shooting the film, and we decided to go with it. It was also a lot of fun that way. We didn't see a reason to break the momentum. So it was great that Anish and Manu were able to keep up, and that's purely because of how prepared and how good their understanding of the script was. And even in terms of directing actors, Manu and Anish are both very gentle, very very, I don't know, they have a very subtle way of putting their points across, or asking their questions or putting thoughts in your mind without disturbing you, without disturbing what you're doing, with giving you all that respect, giving you all the space to play with it, but they still give you these gentle nudges that they want to do to fashion the character, or style the film a certain way. So yeah, I think they did a great job with that, and also with sort of catching up with everything else, considering both of them are sort of working on their first Malayalam film. I mean, Anish's other film was also in Malayalam, but I think this was the first film where he was creatively involved from the first day till last day of shoot. So yeah, I think they've done a very good job, but the rest of that is the audience to decide.
All right. So many times in Hindi, I'm told that the writer is not there on the sets at all. He
Mhm.
just writes the script, he gives it to the director and the makers, and after that, he's not on the sets at all, which I find very strange because there are occasions when the actors they change lines. You know, they
Mhm.
come up with their own dialogues,
Mhm.
and if anything goes wrong,
Yeah,
if there is any controversy, so the writer is blamed.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's interesting. All right, but we are living in fascinating times right now. There was the general norm was that Hindi cinema is something which is the main pivotal as far as India is concerned, and then other languages they were generally called as regional languages, and that's how it was. But with this OTT thing, I think the way things are changing so dramatically, like in the last couple of years, since last 1.5 years, I think this is the third time that I'm speaking to you, and I've spoken to a lot of actors from Telugu and Malayalam and Tamil and Kannada. I recently spoke to Maniratnam sir, which was fascinating. Usually, maybe I would not have. So the interesting part is that now, um, because of say a platform like Amazon, you're there all across India. Like so, the Kuruthi when it is releasing, it's not merely a Malayalam film.
Yeah,
It will be
yeah,
watched by everyone, and not merely in India, but it will be watched all across the world. Today, when we see money heist, for example, the language is not a problem.
exactly.
When we follow all these shows, Korean shows, language is not a problem.
Yeah,
So it is fascinating because there may be a certain market that may be getting created of Malayalam cinema all across the world just because of OTT, and people may be following it. And you never know, something can become huge all across the world. We never know.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you find that fascinating that language is not a barrier, nationality is not a barrier? It's an open world, and you never know what may click with the entire world, not merely India.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was bound to happen. I'm really glad that it's happening now. In fact, once this has begun to happen, I've been wondering why it didn't happen a long time ago because we've all been consuming world cinema and, like you named Money Heist, we've all been watching stuff from outside in different languages. And somehow when we do that, the subtitle has never been a problem. But when we watch stuff from within India, suddenly it's always been too much effort to watch something in some other language and then follow the subtitles, and I don't know why that was, but I'm very glad that mentality is sort of changing with the lockdown, with the OTT platforms kicking in and being everyone's prime medium of looking for art and entertainment. It's great. It's lovely that there is now access to a wider audience for the films that are made in Malayalam and any other industry in India for that matter. And it's also correct because see, the more specific a film gets, the more universal it becomes. I've always thought, and films in Malayalam have at least most of the films in Malayalam have always sort of stuck to a very rooted, very a narrative, very specific and very set in a cultural context of one specific region of Kerala, or like deeply personal stories, and like you said, that's where those nuances coming from. So I feel like I feel it's very interesting that something like that continues to be relatable to people who know nothing of the culture, who know nothing of the lay of the land, or the people here, what their lives are like. So that sort of shows us how powerful this medium actually is, and the kind of receptiveness and the welcoming nature of the audience that we've had in Malayalam cinema when films used to primarily play in theaters has suddenly been. I mean, like, because the theaters are shut, we don't see that anymore. We don't feel that anymore. So we needed something else to replace that, and this seems perfect. Now there's audience from all over the country, or maybe even the world, that are watching these films, talking about these films, and I'm sure that'll act as inspiration, or get filmmakers here to continue to innovate and experiment and come up with better and better work every time they move forward from a project.
What are your tools for your preparation as far as an actor is concerned in terms of how do you hone your talent? Do you like to read? Do you watch cinema? Do you observe people? Do you do any sort of exercises, say for your vocal training or anything of that sort? So what are your tools like?
So I do a bit of all of these things that you've named. So because I primarily come from theater, or that's where I started working. There's a this culture of a set riyaz has been part of my everyday for a while. So a warm up, or rather like a workout in the morning, is my way to start the day, whether I'm shooting that day or not. And yeah, like especially when I'm working on a play, then obviously we involve like a vocal warm up. You work on your voice a little bit, you work on your breath, you work on your stamina. All of that doesn't happen on like an everyday basis. That sort of is something that I only do when I'm working on a play. But apart from that, obviously watching movies and reading books, observing people, having conversations, finding out, listening to stories, or like watching and like finding out about the stories of different kinds of people. All of that happens, but I don't think any of this really happens with the intention of honing my talent, or working on myself. It's just stuff I would do anyway, and because this is what I do, because this is what I am, this is sort of the only thing that I'm so interested in, so passionate about. I feel like everything that I do in some way or the other, I connect it to this. I connect it to acting. I don't have to consciously sit and think that, oh, I'm reading this book so that it will help me eventually as an actor. I just have to sit and read the book, and the help that will hopefully come from that will come anyway. I think that's how it works for all actors. Maybe you're sort of absorbing all of these things around you, and then eventually someday when you're working, it's going to factor in at some point, and you may or may not know that this is where that came from. Most often you won't. But yeah, exposing yourself to all of this is anyway, I mean, it's a great way to live, and it also helps the craft, so it's a win-win, right?
All right. So, Roshan, I've spoken to many actors, and they consider theater as their first love. Now, recently, Surekha Sikri ji passed away.
Yeah.
You must have known of her. So she's a national award-winning actress. But so I'd done an interview with her post Badayo, and when I was researching, so I realized that, and I spoke to her as well. So I think some of her best work happened during her NSD days and on stage. And she herself says that even though she got a national award for Mammo, but she was not entirely happy with that. I spoke to Rohini Hatangadi ji a few days back. So she won a BAFTA for Gandhi, but after that she did not really get the sort of roles that in movies the way she would have wanted, and she ended up playing a lot of these mother roles.
Yeah.
And still she's had a phenomenal filmography. But when you speak to her, when I spoke to her, when I was researching for her, I realized that some of her best works have happened on stage. She has played so many variety of characters on stage. So Nasiruddin Shah, for example, I think he absolutely loves stage, and he takes cinema many a times rather non-seriously. Do you feel at some stage theatre artists they should think from this perspective that at least maybe they should document their performances? There should be at least some level of camera or something that covers it. Because now, if you want to really know what Surekha Sikri did on stage, you really don't have any document of that. And people who have seen it, people who have been through her journey, she's done some phenomenal work. I'm just giving one example. There are many, like Nasir Shah, for example, the sort of plays that he has done. They must be a treat to watch. But a lot of people, they don't have access as far as going to theatre is concerned. Do you think at some stage, a certain level of like maybe amateurish, don't make it too professional, and so that it bothers the actors? But do you think that should be done at some stage?
Actually been against that, sort of always, and that thought hasn't changed now, even with the pandemic, and purely because of the fact that I know when you say that you have no idea what Surekha Sikri ji did on stage when she was talking about her most memorable performances. I know that even if there was a camera there which was shooting it, you still wouldn't know, because there's no way that can do justice to what happened on stage and what the audience sitting there is
live audience, right?
experiencing. So it is. So we've tried that, right? Like I've been part of plays which have been shot with a steady cam, with a very simple steady cam setup that the actors can completely ignore, and even the audience don't know that it's being shot. And I've seen what it looks like, and it in no way does justice to the actual production. I've seen, we worked on a couple of cine plays because at one point Z was planning to launch a channel. I don't know if that actually happened. A channel specifically dedicated to theater and cine plays being recorded, and then so I've worked on and watched a couple of that. Still, for me, it did not do justice. I don't know where to place it. I don't know if it's a play or a film or it is some abstract territory in between, but it does not give me the joy that I get from either medium. I think the closest I've come to actually enjoying the recording of a play is when National Theatre London started doing screenings of their productions, I think a few years ago. So at NCPA and all, there was a time when you could buy a ticket like you would buy a ticket for a movie, incredibly expensive though, and you go to one of the theatres and you get to watch a screening of a play that is happening live. So it's shot live and edited live, multiple cameras, huge setup, and obviously a lot of money invested in that, and they're streaming this all over the world. So there I felt like a lot more of the story came across to me, but it was much closer to watching a film than watching a play. And even then, I constantly found myself in a place where I keep thinking that I'm watching a film, and then suddenly, there's a wide shot, or I see a set transition happen, or I see something that is realistically not possible or usually not attempted in film. Then I realize that it's a play. So it somehow just goes against the definition of theater is what I've always felt. Now with the lockdown, obviously because stage shows aren't happening on stage anymore, I've watched a bunch of Zoom productions, like virtual plays that have happened, rehearsed readings that I've watched virtually. There was one play that completely blew me away. It was called Every Brilliant Thing, performed by Vivek Madan. It happened on Zoom, and every audience member was also a participant in the production. I thought it was brilliantly adapted to the medium. So it gave me an experience, and it never had me questioning whether it would have been better on stage, or is this a play right now, or is this a film, or is this some sort of like other immersive interactive theater thing. It didn't basically give me the space to ask myself any of those questions, just because of how flawlessly it was pulled off and how beautifully it fit into that format. So maybe with more time, more people will figure out. And I'm sure I've heard a few other productions who really made the medium work. Unfortunately, this was the only one that I could personally watch, so that's the only one that I'm talking about. But yeah, just putting a camera and recording a play when it happens live, as far as I've seen in my personal experience, has never done justice to the actual play.
That's a very good perspective. And maybe I think, because I think people can be very creative, and I hope that they come up with some way which can be as realistic as possible.